Well, thanks for sticking around for the final presentation here. We've got three of us here, so yeah, hopefully it'll help us get through this final one. So my name is Alex McKillop. I'm a product manager at the Environment Agency, and I've been working on what we call internally the Next Warning Service, which is a replacement flood warning service to serve England. I'm also joined with Kim, who is a fellow product manager at the Environment Agency, and Charlotte, who's one of our supplier partners, to talk a little bit more about the solution we have developed. So yeah, to begin, what is the Next Warning Service? So it's for us, our objective is that citizens and organisations need a reliable and timely way to receive messages during emergencies, so that they can take the appropriate action. And why are we doing this? A little bit about that. So we, the Environment Agency, we're a non-departmental public body. Sponsored by DEFRA, and under the Civil Contingencies Act, we have a legal obligation to warn and inform people of flooding. So it's a legal responsibility for us to do that. So that's why us, the Environment Agency, do this in England. We inform citizens, including small businesses, as well as larger organisations and professional partners. And where we're issuing these warnings. So we issue warnings to areas affected by flooding from rivers, the sea, and groundwater. And we issue these to users within predefined flood alert and flood warning areas. So we've got the flood extent mapped out for every river catchment in England. And these are the areas that we use to issue these warnings and alerts to. And it's a multi-channel system. So we issue messages via SMS, email, phone call, website, IVR, and our CAP aggregator. We have a few little variants of severities for flooding scenarios. We've got flood alerts, flood warnings, severe flood warnings, emergency alerts, which is the self-broadcasting variant. And we also issue warnings no longer in force. And then we've got a final type, which is operational messages. So these are informational messages for professional partners, typically, if they have action to take related to a flooding situation. So if we need someone to close a floodgate, for example, we can send messages from this system. And when are these messages sent? So duty officers work with the Met Office and Flood Forecasting Centre to monitor and run models and forecasts, and that determines when we decide to issue a warning and at what severity level. So a little bit of history. We've been doing this for a long time at the Environment Agency. This is our 29 years of issuing flood warnings to the public, which began back in 1996 with a automated telephone voice messaging system. And there's been a few developments along the way, which are outlined here. One that would be interested here is that we introduced CAP in 2019. So it's relatively new in the context of flood warnings for us. And then a bit more about the service in England. So 5.5 million homes and businesses in England are at risk of flooding. And obviously with climate change, this is expected to increase. So it's really important we continue to offer this service. It affects a lot of people in England. We're committed to doing this at the Environment Agency. And the current service is one of, we're fortunate enough to be considered a great service by the GDS standards, which is something we'd like to maintain and uphold. And we currently have 2.6 million people registered to receive these alerts and warnings via the warning system. So yeah, quite a significant reach there. And in 2025, actually, hot off the press, yesterday we went live with this new system. So a massive milestone to us. So it's been quite a week coming out here, trying to deploy the system yesterday. And then the first alerts being actually sent today, this afternoon. The first alerts have been sent from this system out to these target areas. So yeah, quite a wild week. So yeah, that's a bit of the context and history. I'll move on now to overview, well, what have we implemented? And I'll pass over to Charlotte to talk a little bit more about the Intersec solution, and then Kim to talk about CAP more specifically.
This one maybe? Or
I can do this one if you want. Yeah, yeah, no problem. So let's give you a high-level overview of this Next Warning Service ecosystem, as we'll call it. So begins with the telemetry and forecasting, as I mentioned. So this is what informs duty officers of alert should be issued and what severity. And as we know, it's really key that you get accurate information, send the warning at the right time. Otherwise, yeah, like trust issues can arise if you're alerting inappropriately. And then in terms of how we disseminate those messages, we use the GeoSafe product provided by Intersec. Now that's an omni-channel system to disseminate messages. It has templated message content, which we've worked on. Obviously, we cover different variants of flooding. So we've got the fluvial, tidal, coastal, and for each variant, we can have a template to help a duty officer compose messages whilst under pressure to make that easier, to make sure it's accurate, it's consistent, which is a really powerful tool. And it also enables us to manage the recipients of these messages. And there's a few ways we can do if we can handle that side of things. The third part of this ecosystem is the Get Flood Warnings website. This is a registration-based services, so users can register to this. These are people in flood-affected areas or people interested in flood-affected areas. So they can register for free via the public government website. Select flood target areas that they're interested in, and they'll receive the alerts and warnings. And they can opt in and out of various levels of warning. So if they don't want to receive the more less severe alerts, they can choose not to go to those and get those and only get the more severe alerts. It's useful. We've then got connections through via an API to Check for Flooding, which is a publicly available .gov UK website, which provides an aggregated view of all the alerts and warnings that have been issued by the Environment Agency. And anyone can log on that system at any time and see what's in force. And then we've got an API through to the CAP aggregator, which aggregates CAP messages, producing an ATOM feed. And Google Public Alerts uses this feed. So any messages with the threshold for the severity will also be published on those Google Public Alerts. So that's all from me. I'll pass over to Charlotte to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
No problem. Sorry, some squeaky chairs.
Working now, yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Alex. So I'm going to be expanding a bit on the Intersec product. So I here as a representative of Intersec. So our solution is called GeoSafe. This is a solution, if you know of Intersec, you probably know more about cell broadcast, location-based SMS and everything that Ahmed presented earlier with AI. But we also and in this case, with Environment Agency, do warnings on registered attendees. And we always, to us, it's very important to continue promoting like a multi-channel approach. And this is exactly what's happening here with Environment Agency. So as you said, Alex, it's omni-channel. So we have SMS, emails, voice calls, IVR. I just put a little explanation because some of you probably don't know about IVR. Basically, it's when you call to get more information about an alert that has been issued. So this alert has been issued because blah, 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 and there is some context around it. So it's different from the alerts that you get when you registered for a voice. It's really to get some more complement information about the alert itself. And then, as you mentioned, Alec, there is this API that is pushing the alerts as well on the governmental website and on Google Alerts. Yeah, thanks. Template management, templated messages content, that's important here because it's managed in two ways. There is the on the map itself and the defined areas. There are many predefined areas based on the mapping, geographical mapping that were available directly, of course, from the EA experts. So that was imported into the tool to predefine as many, granular zones available, and templates for messages themselves to make it easier for the users. So you can pick, this is just like an illustration here of, the type of message, the timing of the message, the flood is supposed to start to expect that date at that time. And so what we're putting into place to in this particular scenario. So all these, there are many, many templates that have been, again, predefined with the team. And third component, the registered, recipient management. So there are two cases. There are the registered users. Those, when they register, they fill out some information, of course, first and last name, but also email address, cell phone, home phone, and of course, point of interest, which is basically the address. And when they register, this is also how they register to say if they want to receive the alerts by email, phone, SMS, and so on. So they can make a combination of several, it's really depending on each user. But there is also an interesting function here is that for unregistered users, the Environment Agency still has the opportunity to push alerts if they haven't yet registered for severe alerts. So yeah, of course, we manage GDPR, opt-in, opt-out management. That's important to mention. And as you said in the history, Alex, there is something that for us is really an achievement to have worked with you guys, because this has been like legacy systems for 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. And now we have like a unified platform that is really making things easier for everyone. So we didn't do that alone. We provided the location intelligence and messaging capabilities, but there is Cogworth, that's another partner that has been providing the user interface. Leidos, that's been managing the project. Of course, Environment Agency with all the data available at first. And for the population, what I wanted to highlight as well is that it's in a cloud environment, cloud-based environment, meaning that moving forward, every time there is going to be some upgrades, it's a future-proof solution. It's not something that we stop here and then we have to modernize again, hopefully not 20 years from now, ever, I hope. And Ahmed was talking about AI. This is not something that in the scope at the moment, in the short term. But if we want to do that, the fact that it has been managed that way, again, in a cloud-based environment, is going to make it way easier and faster to improve it over time. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for that, Charlotte. I think what I'm going to do now is just go on to talk about actually what's next for CAP. So we've now launched the new flood warning system yesterday. Like Alex said, it was a little bit of a scary day being on a plane knowing it was all happening and we couldn't be involved. There are kind of two areas that I wanted to mainly address today. And the first of all, it's actually increasing the reach of the Environment Agency's flood warnings with CAP. And secondly, I want to talk about improving the quality of the information that we're actually providing our citizens using CAP. And so just starting on with the increasing the reach, one of the important things to talk about is why. And so the Environment Agency do a flood risk survey every year with kind of different samples of the population. And last year's survey still found that only 42% of residents that live in flood risk areas were aware that they're at flood risk. And actually, just while we're here, can I have a show of hands if you actually found that quite shocking? Because I found that, as I saw Elliot go, ooh. No, everyone else doesn't seem to find it shocking. It's just you, Elliot. But yeah, we do find that quite shocking. And it's actually not changed at all in the last sort of 4 or 5 years. It's been around 40%. So yeah, only 42% of people are actually realising that they are living in flood risk areas. And so the current service that we have is very geared towards property. Obviously, we are looking to make improvements now that we've launched the new system, but we are looking at kind of where people's properties are due to flood. And one of the services I manage is our Check for Flooding service that Alex mentioned earlier. And we have a feedback link as part of that service. And we get a lot of feedback, especially when it does flood. So you can imagine we get a lot of feedback, which is really useful for us. But the examples, if you can read them up on the screen, are real examples that I've used here. So what we're seeing is a lot of people that are now asking for information when they're actually out and about. They want to know how it's going to affect their commute. They want to know if they can take their children to school or if they're taking people to hospital. So I have used real examples here that come from that feedback mechanism that we do have on our service. and just kind of going into the how. And so kind of our first steps in actually increasing the reach is actually to integrate with Meteor Alarm. So that's kind of what we are looking at doing at the moment, and being part of the redistribution hub. And this will quite quickly open up our CAP feed much wider, and to be able to kind of to make it easily accessible for kind of consumers that are already taking in CAP messages that way. The UK Met Office recently launched their CAP feed, in conjunction with Meteor Alarm, using the Meteor Alarm profile, the new profile, and actually you can see an example on the screen there in showing in Apple weather. We are working quite closely with the Met Office and also our equivalents in Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland, because the UK, we all have slightly different responsibilities, which always makes it really, really helpful to try and be consistent. But we have formed a bit of a partnership with a common warning framework, which we're all working together to try and kind of make that a little bit more consistent. But the example that I'm showing on the screen there is from the Met Office. And this is, like I said, a wind warning that was issued in Apple weather. And I was actually sat with my husband watching TV when this particular one was issued, and it pinged on his Apple Watch. And I got quite excited by it. He got quite confused about why I was quite excited by this. But I was quite excited by this because ultimately, we were within the warning area. So that's why we got the message. And I think it just shows that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to take now these warnings and these messages to people on the devices that they are already using and on the platforms that they are already using. So we're not relying on them kind of coming to sign up. And Charlotte mentioned the unregistered users that we do have. We have partnerships with the mobile network providers, but it is still based on billing address. So we do this by obtaining billing addresses for people's phones. And we do obviously opt people out and follow all the GDPR things, but we're still kind of relying on that part, that focus on people's property being at risk. And so now what we're trying to do is actually get people and make sure that we're bringing that information as they're going about their lives. But next, I think what we also are trying to focus on is actually improving the quality, because it's really important that the information that we are sharing is a good quality. And you can see, here's an example of, you might recognise it over there, of one of our warnings showing on Google Public Alerts. And you've got the map at the top and then our description. And I think if I start moving it, you will see our instruction field is very long. So we actually, we launched this, I think, in 2019. We haven't really refreshed it since then. And we have a lot of content there. And one of the pieces of work that we did recently over the last year of working in the partnership of bringing in the new flood warning system was to actually improve the content of the emails that we send out. And they use a very similar kind of instruction sort of template here in the kind of advice section. But what our research actually found is no one was reading it because it was so long. So one of the pieces of work that we did was to really look at the emails and try to kind of improve the content. So last year, the work was done to redesign the email, so it's now actually focused on clear, actionable content. And when we do issue warnings, we do a lot of research with users and user groups, and we get a lot of feedback. And one of the most common thing that we hear when people receive warnings is, okay, but what do I do now? Like they need to know what they need, what they want to do now. What should I be doing? Where do I go? What do I do? And people need to be able to clearly see what action they need to take. They need actionable content. So the new content was actually, just to show there. So this is an example of the email content, and it's kind of the focus is now to be able to make sure that it's refined so that we can actually see, that users can clearly see the actionable content. They've got links there to check for flooding where they can get more information. We've also replaced a lot of the content with links to advice held on our gov.uk pages, which is already there and it's been redone. There is advice that goes into our description that is a bit more distinct regarding the event, but we have changed it so people can kind of click through and get that now. But it was refined with user research and tested with a variety of users from all different backgrounds and also different accessibility needs. And so that is going to form the starting point of what we're looking at when we're focusing initially on the CAP instruction field. We've got the evidence to show that people can now identify the call to action and kind of know what they need to do next. But there are kind of a few things that we are going to have to think about a little bit differently with CAP. Obviously, the links are formatted in a certain way in the email. If we are going to be providing a lot of links, we aren't going to be able to format them in a similar way. But we will be trying to kind of signpost people to where they can get more information, and hopefully focus a little bit more on what we can do on formatting kind of in the future. But I think the good thing is we know where we can start and we know where we can make kind of improvements. So when we will always continue to iterate. So based on our feedback and research. So thank you.
Mike, oh, there we go. Any questions in the room? Yes.
Thank you very much, guys, for the presentation. It was very interesting. But what got my attention was this feedback mechanism for the population. I'm very interested to know how is this feedback mechanism linked to the system, warning system, and what kind of feedback you are receiving from population. Since we are also we would like to set up something like this, and it will be very interesting.
Yes, there's slightly different kind of ways in which we talk about feedback. So when we actually include warnings, we will include links to things like how to be able to report flooding. And we have links to both our digital services and what we call our assisted digital channels. So if it's anything that's kind of directly relevant to the event, that's where we signpost people. With the feedback mechanism that we include on our service, this is for improvement. So it's, if you have any feedback about how we can improve the service, please use this form. And we try to make it as clear as possible not to use that form in the life-threatening situations. We have different signposting for that. So there's slight differences, just wanted to make sure with that, but that's how we label it on the service.
So feedback mainly through the surveys you are doing, right?
Yeah, so for the feedback from improving the service, we have free text fields there, so they can leave a rating, and then we have a free text field, and they can also kind of, in some cases, report a problem, because we also show kind of telemetry gauges and things. So if people notice that a site's gone down or something, they can alert us. But yeah, if it's kind of actually directly to do with the flood event, then we will send them kind of a slightly different way.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I had a question. So like the UK is quite a particular territory. There's a lot of foreign communities as well that may not have English as a first language. There's also some regional language available in the UK. Does it work only in English, or is it possible to register another like main language for communication? Or
so in England, we only currently issue in English. In Wales, they have to issue in Welsh as well, because it's a legal obligation there. But we don't currently issue in any other languages. One of the things that we do with our content is we do ensure that we are writing very clear content, so that we can have a good kind of assurance that translators are able to translate the content. So that's something that we do when we're designing the content of the service. But currently our messages do just go out in English.
okay, thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. I had a question on the using people's addresses in the list-based. I'm curious, why not use location-based SMS? What problems have been going on in terms of being able to use that, especially for the urgent full population ones?
We don't use location-based SMS. We do have our emergency alerting platform, which is the cell broadcasting channel. I've never been involved in the kind of location-based SMS, but we don't tend to focus on the kind of pre-registered. So it is still a location that you're registering for, because we have predefined target areas. So although you're registering your address or your point of interest, you will be issued any messages that are from polygons that overlap that. So it's kind of, there could be kind of different risk polygons or different like tidal ones or fluvial ones, and then it will pick up that your address is within that polygon and send the message to you that you are addressed to. But we don't do it through location-based SMS at the moment. But I'm not as close to that project, so I can't answer exactly why.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious if there's any limitations you saw as to why you weren't using it. And then Actually, you kind of answered my second question, which is I noticed that you've, with the reformed messages, that you use a lot of links. And if you're kind of using that also the same messages for cell broadcast, because cell broadcast doesn't allow for links, or is it a different system?
No, we do have a different variant that goes out for cell broadcasting that doesn't have links. When we originally did our testing with cell broadcasting, we did want to include the link, but we were asked not to do that because of issues with a lot of people clicking a link at the same time. So we do now indicate to people where they can go for information, but we don't include the links in the cell broadcast version.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Tom, is there anything online? Okay. Oh,
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Great presentation.
Ooh.
That's a sign. Okay.
Let's turn around.
So an observation and a question. Observation, it's not all been plain sailing, and just a thank you really to you, because I know in the early days, some of your polygons have extreme precision, obviously because those crinkly bits around the rivers, and that made the polygons very long. And I know we tried to shorten them, and that caused self-intersections. So just a thank you, really. It wasn't plain sailing, and I think suppliers as well engaging. You must have had a hand in helping us resolve those issues. So thank you. You know, it's nice when I know you want to present a new implementation as though it was all perfect from day one, but there was a process here, and so thank you. Job well done. UK-centric question, though. When Environment Agency went out for this system, was CAP a part of the procurement, or was it the supplier's use of CAP, which, you know, was there symbiosis there? How did that work? Because I think there's a general not invented here with CAP in the UK. And if we can take your best practice and spread it to other agencies, that would be great. So I'm interested to know why you guys are a champion for CAP in the UK.
CAP was a requirement as part of the re-procurement for this system. Our CAP feed has been around for longer than this this retender. So we launched, I think it was actually 2017. Sorry. Actually. So yeah, so we've had the CAP feed as it is for quite a while now. So it was something that we did want to continue with. And I think we saw the benefits of it quite early on, and that our first integration was actually with Google Public Alerts. And we're seeing, and I think just to reiterate something they said about a lot of people coming through Google to get that information, the majority of the traffic that we see to our services does come through Google. And so it's a great place to be able to get hold of people and information, and also just to be able to disseminate so widely. So that's something that we wanted to ensure that we kept going with. I don't know if you want to add anything. And also just to when you mentioned about the polygons, just to probably reassure you, sorry, ours are huge. So they're absolutely huge. We have thousands of nodes. So yeah, definitely. I think if we tried to put them under 100, they would look nothing like they do now. So yeah, just some reassurance that they are massive. Oh, polygon.
well, and another way to get around that would be to say that in your style sheet, you can redirect to a page that's got the actual cadastral.
Yeah.
So I didn't say it flooded on your property, even though the CAP alert would have this simplified, more hydrological view, which doesn't really take into account a property.
No, we
Yeah.
have looked at whether we do have a look at different kind of polygons for different,
Yes,
not audiences, but different scenarios. I
different
guess.
technology.
Because the flood modeling that we use to create our very complicated outlines is very, again, based on property. So we're making sure that we are looking, and the thresholds are the same. They are very based on when the first property will flood for a flood warning, whereas our lower levels are kind of more river exceeds its banks, and it's that kind of low lying land and farming and things like that. So
You know, now that you say it that way, I wonder if the 42% is property owners all know, but renters are like, I don't know.
we do see some of that with people that are renting versus
Yeah.
buying. But our organizational service, which Alex can talk a bit more about, does including a lot of kind of large like housing associations, so
Yeah.
people things like that. So they often will register all of their properties, and they can monitor it that way.
Okay, cool. Just to follow up on the CAP feeds, Are Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland
Yeah,
going to give us a cap?
they're very close. did have a meeting with them last week. So I've seen the Welsh one now. It's not live yet, but I think they are hoping to have it before Christmas.
We would love to help review that so
Yeah.
that we don't have to fix it after the fact.
No, they are also working towards the Meteor Alarm, the 2.0 profile. So they're very linked in with Meteor Alarm. So we should got thumbs up there. So we're all trying to do the same thing.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, anything else up there, Elisa or Tom? Okay, we're all good.